to my channel. I am Mussetta Lee Storm, and today we are going to do two recipes to celebrate Beltane. Beltane is a holiday that occurs on May 1st, and it has other names like Fire Festival, and sometimes involves fire jumping if that's what you're inclined to do. The two recipes that we will be cooking today, or making today, is cherry chillers, which is a ice drink, and Beltane bread, which is a kind of cookie. Alright, so we're going to start off with making the cherry chill recipe, and this is kind of like a crushed ice slushy kind of recipe. It will be frozen, so you'll either want to use a bowl or a pitcher that will fit into your freezer to make this recipe. Alright, so in this recipe we will be using a 12-ounce can of frozen cherry juice. I use concentrate from a bottle, so I had to figure out the ratio for making this, but the frozen can of juice should have directions on it as to how to make it, because you will just make the cherry juice as directed on the can. Aside from that, you'll also want 2 cups of apricot juice, or apricot nectar is usually what it's called. I struggled to find apricot juice of any kind, so I went with strawberry nectar. In this case, it works really well with cherries. This brand does carry an apricot nectar. I just could not find it locally. And then you'll also need 1 tablespoon of sugar, and then a half a teaspoon of almond extract. And then after everything's all done, you can also use almonds and cherries for a garnish, or you can use other fruits, of course, of your choice. So I'm going to go ahead and mix that all up in my pitcher. I've already made my cherry juice. That's what's going on here. And I'm going to mix all of that up in this pitcher, and then I'm going to stick it in my freezer. Now, the last time I did this, it took about 5.5 hours for it to freeze to the correct consistency. Once it's frozen to the correct consistency, I will show you all what it looks like at that point. At this time, I'm just going to go ahead and mix this all together, and you can go ahead and watch me do that. So I've got all the ingredients added in here, and we're just mixing it all up to make sure the sugar has dissolved before I stick it into the freezer for 5.5 to 6 hours. Okay, so it's been several hours now, about 5 or 6, and the drink has gotten to a good and slushy consistency here. Could probably have gone for a little bit longer, but that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and show what it's like now. I'm going to dish it up in a cup or glass here and show you, the slushy drink that this is. As I told you before, you can garnish with fruit and almonds as you like. I'm not going to do that this time. So if this is more frozen than a slushy consistency, you can put this into your blender, stick it on blend, and it should bring it down to roughly the same consistency. And then here is the cherry chill in my unbirthday glass. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the second recipe, which is Beltane bread, which, as I mentioned, is like a cookie or a biscuit. Okay, so for this recipe, what you're going to need is 4 cups of sifted flour, half a cup of ground almonds. You can either buy them pre-ground or grind them yourself. 2 cups of sugar, 1 tube of almond paste. Now, when I found my almond paste, I actually found 2 different kinds. I got the 7-ounce tube. Looks like this. I got it at my local Safeway. Also, when I was looking things up, I noticed that Walmart may carry it and other various stores that I didn't recognize. So Walmart and Safeway at the very least. I have 3 Safeways I could have gotten this at. My one nearest to me is the one that carried it. So then you're also going to need a half teaspoon of baking powder, a 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 5 eggs. For future reference, I do plan on doing this recipe again and trying out some kind of egg substitute, possibly applesauce is what I'm thinking might work best for this. Then what you're going to want to do is form these into balls and then press them down. I'm going to use a cookie scoop. It's a 1-inch cookie scoop. It looks like this. I don't know where I got it from, but I'm sure places like if your grocery store has a kitchen utensil aisle, usually they'll have something like this in there. If not, maybe a cookingware store or even Amazon. You could probably find it there. And then press them down into flat ball shapes. You're going to want to bake these at 375 degrees for about 20 minutes. They're going to be a nice golden brown color. So I'm going to go ahead and get this all mixed together. One thing I do want to give warning about with the almond paste, it is a, it's a harder paste. So you're probably not going to be able to mix this by hand. You're going to want some kind of an electric mixer or stand mixer. And when I open this, I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get this all mixed together and show you what the paste looks like before it's fully mixed in. And then show you what it looks like once it's all in one consistency, and then roll it together and show you how I do all that. So this is the tube the almond paste comes in, and this is the full tube, the full 7 ounces that is this container. And I'm pretty sure that 7 ounces is about what you're supposed to get. The other container was a bigger size, and I don't really think that's what is to be called for. But as you can see, I can just press it with my fingers, but being in a tube, it's going to keep its shape because, they package it like this. And it's got the little metal closings around here, so you are going to need to cut this off. And I'm going to go ahead and do that and then show you what it looks like with the wrapper removed. Okay, so I have removed the wrapper from it, and as you can see, this is what almond paste looks like. It's, kind of a golden color. It's hard-ish. Well, soft, I guess, is more. You see, I can squish it, but it doesn't, squish too much. It is not the same as marzipan. I looked that up. Marzipan tends to be a sweeter, more sugary type of paste, where this is not, even though they're very, very, very similar. I probably would not switch out the two in this recipe, but if you like sweeter things, I maybe use less sugar than what the recipe calls for if you decide to use marzipan. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and continue on with the recipe here, get it all mixed up, and then show you what the dough looks like before I start putting it into balls and then sticking it in the oven. Okay, so we now have everything all mixed together, and as you saw while watching, I switched out my paddle attachment for the dough hook attachment, because it just, as it got thicker, when mixed together, it became harder for the paddle attachment to mix through. So I would recommend with stand mixers to use a dough hook attachment or something similar to do this. As I mentioned, I will now show you what this dough looks like, the consistency. So I'll just pick up what just came off the dough hook here, and as you see, it's really thick dough. It holds a shape, and we're going to be forming it into some balls and then pressing those balls on the cookie sheet and then cooking those up for about 20 minutes until they're about a golden brown color. Then we're going to wait for them to cool off, and then we're going to ice them with the solar cross. Okay, now that I have 12 cookies out on the ungreased cookie sheet, and I also put down parchment paper because that's just how I prefer to bake to protect the cookie sheet. What I'm going to do now is press the cookies. And the way I press the cookies is that I actually put a piece of saran wrap over top of them, and it's the same piece that I also use to cover the bowl when they're baking. And then I take one of my glass measuring cups, and then I press down the cookie so I don't have to get it all over my hands, because this stuff really gumps up on your hands and just is real gooky. So that's just the way I do it. If you want to use your hands, feel free to use your hands. This is also how I make sure that they're all even and uniform in the same shape and size. So I'll show you how I do that, and then I'll put them in the oven. Again, we are baking at, as soon as I find it, 375 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on how your oven keeps its heat. Okay, so I've got 2 dozen of the Beltane breads cooked up here. And I'm getting ready to ice them, but I wanted to show you what they looked like when they were out of the oven prior to icing. So this is the golden color. They're a bit darker around the edges because they were still a bit thinner around the edges, but golden color here. And then I'm going to ice them with a solar cross. For icing, I'm just, it's just basic icing that you can make at home. I have it in a piping bag. If you don't have a piping bag, you can also use something like a sandwich baggie. Some people can even pipe using things like parchment paper. I found dollar disposable piping bags, so that's what I'm going to use. Okay, so this is how the Beltane breads turn out at the end there. So we have our little solar crosses on our little almond disc. So there you go. There is your Beltane breads. All right, so there you have the cherry chill and the Beltane breads. I hope you have a wonderful and safe Beltane holiday. If you do choose the fire jump, please make sure you keep your clothing out of the fire. If you'd like, please subscribe, leave a comment, thumbs my video up, and I also have an Instagram if you're interested in following me there, and I'll have it down in the description below. Bye! See you next video.